Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We're presented by CLNS Media. Today on the show, we've got good friend of the program, Cole Zwicker, making his weekly appearance on the podcast. We are going to talk about the 2017 NBA Draft. Given that we are at the end of the 2017-18 season, it's worth rehashing all of these rookies and seeing who exceeded expectations, who met expectations, who ended up floundering a little bit and is going to need a big second year to recover. Ultimately, Cole, I think this has been a pretty solid class though, right?
Yeah, they've lived up to expectations, I think, for the most part. Everybody's producing. That's kind of why I like this class a lot. Through the lottery, at least, we had a lot of guys who are going to contribute, at least be productive pros. We'll see how high the ceilings go. Some guys have definitely exceeded our expectations, like we'll talk about, but it's been a really solid class.
How's your weekend going before we even get into the rest of basketball in general? What have you been up to up in the Pacific Northwest? I know that you're excited this week coming up for Nike Hoop Summit.
Definitely. I've been trying to get everything in order before going down there. I ended up having drinks with Mike Vissenberg of NBADraft.net Friday night because he was in town. But yesterday and today, just been kind of low-key. Just trying to put some stuff together, finish some database entries before heading down to the Hoop Summit because that's my favorite week of the year. Portland's awesome as far as, things to do, of course, but just the Hoop Summit, great event, really intricate environment where you get to be next to these prospects, and I'm really amped.
Hoop Summit's always great. I'm not heading out to Portland this year. It's genuinely one of my favorite events, though, to go to whenever I get a chance. Portland, particularly where the practice facility is out in Tualatin, is incredible. I'm generally not a huge fan of, inner city Portland, but whenever you get outside of that, just little congealed area, it is absolutely beautiful, I think.
Exactly. I hate inner city Portland. I should have clarified. I mean, driving there is just a total son of a bitch. Siri always messes up, so it'll end up being rerouted. And they have so much public transportation there, so you never know what lane to drive in. It's kind of a nightmare, but I just go right through on I-5. And yeah, the outside perimeter areas, I'm used to it because, of course, living in the Pacific Northwest, so it's nice to get into it's a different state. But yeah, where they have the practice facility, the people who put on the Hoop Summit always do a really good job.
Yeah, I mean, you get access to whoever you want there. I mean, I remember I talked to Markelle Fultz for the first time, 2.5 years ago or something, and kind of learned a little bit about what makes him tick, what kind of goes into his brain, and just how he's kind of wired as a person. It's just very interesting to kind of get to know these kids on a better basis than what you do. I got a chance to learn, you learn about all of these dudes who are going to be future NBA stars, and, so many of them come through that event that it just makes it such an awesome event to go to and to attend every single year.
Exactly. You get a really nice exposure. For the first time for me, I have not seen these guys for the most part in person yet. So just being able to do that, get access to them and see them in a close, confined environment. You can sit probably 2 feet away from them while they're warming up. So you get to see, shooting form intricately. So it's just a really awesome event.
Speaking of Markelle Fultz, let's get into what the meat of this podcast is going to be. It's going to be breaking down, as we mentioned at the top, the 2017 NBA Draft. At some point, Cole and I are also going to talk about some of the other younger prospects that are littered throughout the NBA, guys who are 23 and under, and kind of discuss how their seasons went. Maybe that'll be next week at some point. But for this week, we're going to focus just on the rookie class. As we mentioned at the top, we kind of feel like this rookie class has been, I would say, very strong, to be honest. Between the performances of Ben Simmons, who we're not going to talk about today, Donovan Mitchell, Jayson Tatum, Kyle Kuzma coming up big from the 27th spot, I believe he was selected. Even a guy like Jarrett Allen and Terrence Ferguson started games. There's a lot to be pretty happy with this rookie class.
Exactly. It's lived up to my expectations for sure. I saw it as a really quality class. Again, not sure about the star level equity at the very top as far as we're going to get potential Hall of Famers. That's already been a discussion that's been started on Twitter. I think it's too early for that. But as far as contributing and being productive in a role, we've definitely seen that throughout this class, especially at the top.
Yeah, no question. And I think we should start right at the top with Markelle Fultz. We're going to go through at least all of the lottery, and then we're going to pick and choose who we talk about the rest of the way. So Fultz has now played 11 games. He's played 187 minutes, so it's not like we're going to make sweeping generalizations about his game. But one thing that has stood out to me with him is that he's a much better defender than anything we saw at Washington. He at least battles on that end. He is capable of at least fighting through screens, and his length causes a lot of issues, as well as his physical body. He's literally the size of a 2 guard, so that helps him defend ones at the point of attack. The negatives, ultimately, I think we have to talk about the fact that his jump shot is still a mess. He missed 3/4 of the season, still trying to figure out kind of what's going on with him and his jump shot. I think that you and I saw the formations of that jump shot changing throughout the course of Summer League last year, and certainly NBA executives that I talked to certainly had some questions about the jump shot even before draft day. They could kind of see that it was going down that road in terms of it changing. At the least, it was hopefully not going to be as negative as it ended up being. But how do we even take something away from this year? Because it has to be a disappointment on some level that Fultz, who goes number 1 in this awesome rookie class, ends up only playing 187 minutes so far. But how do we even go about trying to take away any sort of real, tangible information from what we saw from his year?
It's really tough. I think you have to keep an open mind and kind of view it maybe as an incomplete. And just moving forward, we'll see how he progresses into Summer League if he plays this year and then into next season. We need a more solidified sample. I mean, so much of the early games that he played, I think you can just throw out. I went back and watched his shooting form. It was just a disaster against like the Pistons, for example. I don't think his shot is back to what it was at University of Washington or maybe even in Summer League, but it's definitely progressed way past what it was early in the regular season. But like you noted, there is some really positive takeaways. Like his defense has been kind of impressive to me. Like he even jumped a passing lane the other day. Like he's showing some readability as well as the physical tools and the length. And then we see the talent. Like he is so freaking talented. Getting the ball, like his pace of play, the high dribble. He's so deceptive with that. Getting to the rim, he just looks like he can definitely finish around NBA bodies. And I was always super high on his finishing, even though he's not like a crazy leaper. But like he's so strong, he can absorb contact, and he's so tricky. And you've seen that kind of trickle in over time. His numbers in this respect still aren't very good, but that's, again, factoring in the early season production that wasn't there. I think you're going to start to see that pick up. So there's been some really positive signs. I think just overall takeaway is just the talent looks there. Like watching him on the floor with his size, physical tools, skill level, and then the intellect has been a little bit more impressive than I expected.
Yeah, the body control and creativity are still there. The just general misdirection that he provides every time he has the ball in his hands. Like he'll get defenders going one way and he goes the exact opposite way all the time. Still, it's just that they don't respect his jump shot at all, and that makes it really difficult for him to score. If he ends up getting anything resembling that jump shot that he had at Washington back, I don't think it's going to be like game over by any stretch of the imagination, but he's going to be like a long-time starter just based off of what we've seen so far, at least, I think.
Yeah, and I think it could be game over with the Sixers just because they're so damn good already. If they get him, that's exactly the kind of player they need if he can shoot the ball. So you can't view it overall. If you were giving Fultz a grade, I would still say it was incomplete. I'm not sure if you can say it's okay.
It does. Like, it just does. Like, if you're going number 1 overall in a draft class, you're expected to come in, be this elite level scorer from day one, and you end up missing 68 games due to a mysterious shoulder injury and a mysterious, what's going on in his head situation where we don't really have all the information yet. It's hard for me to call that a positive,
Yeah, it's definitely not a positive for sure. For me, it's more of an incomplete. It's disappointing. I just can't really conclusively say it's all negative because there's nothing really to compare it to. It's not relative to anything we've seen.
It's literally something we have never seen before. It's amazing.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. It's like basically I'm just giving it incomplete. But if I was going to weigh either positive or negative, clearly it's negative. I mean, he didn't come in and produce like you expect the number 1 pick to. He just was never himself this year. So we'll see if he can get back to that state. But at least the talent's starting to show. And he looks a little bit more confident and a little bit more comfortable than I expected. I mean, that first game back, of course, he had a little bit of jitters out of the gate. But like one of the games the other day, like he came in the second quarter or the end of the first quarter, early second, and he was awesome in that game, in that stint. So there were definitely positives.
Yeah, the game against the Pistons, I believe it was. Is that the one you're talking about? He was, I thought, pretty decent there. Like I thought he was actually like a very useful NBA player there. Let's move on. Let's talk about Lonzo Ball. I don't even know where to start with Lonzo. again, one of the recurring themes of this podcast and something that I tweeted about while watching the Philadelphia-Cleveland game is the defense. Lonzo's defense was really good. It's generally something that we've seen from this class overall. I can't remember a rookie class that has been this good defensively between Lonzo Ball and Jordan Bell and Shimi Ojeleye and yell out other names. Who else? Bam Adebayo's been pretty solid defensively. Frank Ntilikina's been good defensively. Who else?
Josh Jackson's played better recently.
Sure.
He didn't start good. I think he's at least showing the proclivity to defend. OG, different guys. I agree with you. It's been definitely a more solid defensive class than I expected. There's a lot of guys that have outperformed what I thought they'd even be their median outcome in their rookie year.
Yeah, like Sterling Brown and Sindarius Thornwell, both playing a lot of minutes in large part due to their defense. Jonathan Isaac, in the 500 minutes he's played this year, has been very good defensively.
Monster.
This has been a very, very good defensive class, and it's something that I wonder if we're going to see more and more going forward, given the way that athleticism is even more important for NBA defensive schemes now, with the way that teams try and use switching schemes and try and use versatile athletes on the floor defensively more than anything. I wonder if we're going to see the defensive level of rookie classes continue to be a little bit better than what we've seen in the past. Maybe not as good as this year, but a little bit better than what we've seen in the past.
That's probably fair, and especially when you pair the athleticism with the instincts. This is something that sticks out with Lonzo. We've talked about his team defense before, but he is really disruptive as a weak side defender. He knows when to rotate, when to crash down for blocks. He can challenge at the rim, and then he rotates really quickly, so he can close out to a shooter. And he's usually pretty technically sound at doing that, but he has the recovery speed. Lonzo's a pretty good athlete in certain respects. He's really stiff, and it doesn't translate as much on offense, but on defense, when he can really utilize his instincts and then his closing speed and his 2-foot leaping ability, you see that manifest on the floor.
Yeah, no question there. Let's talk about the offense, because the offense, I think, is where Lonzo is going to make or break his career. That's just kind of the fact of the matter. When you take a guy number 2 overall, you're not hoping for a high-level defensive point guard first and foremost. That's just kind of the way it is. So on the positive side, Lonzo Ball, 10 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds. That's in a vacuum, good numbers. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah.
Problems. 36% from the field, 30% from 3, 45% from the foul line. The foul shooting might be I don't think people talk about it enough with Lonzo. A lot of the Lakers people I followed don't really talk about the foul shooting being as big an issue with Lonzo as the 3-point shooting. I'm way more worried about the foul shooting than I am the 3-point shooting. Do we think that's fair?
Yeah, the thing with the foul shooting is he rarely gets there. So it's I think that in time he's going to need to adjust that. Of course, you can't shoot 45% if you're a lead guard in the NBA from the foul line. So I'm concerned about that. I'm actually, it's close for me. It probably would lean foul line just historically because it's such a poor number. I'm also concerned about his 3-point shooting, though, and not for the reasons about his form and everything. It's more the confidence I've seen that he didn't really have. Yeah, he hasn't been the same confident shooter this year. It's picked up a little bit mid-season as far as when guys were just ducking under him and he had these big gaps. That's when he started to make defenses pay. Pete Zayas, Laker film room guy, did a really good job breaking this down as far as the coverages have shifted on him now. Now they're starting to chase over the top again, and you're seeing that exploit his weaknesses because he's not a scorer. The finishing on the basket has just been horrendous. He's in the 10th percentile around the basket in the half court. He was a 73% 2-point shooter at UCLA. That was the highest mark in the last decade and a half for lead guards. And I wrote about this last year at the time. You had to suss through what off-ball versus on-ball was. We've seen the on-ball inability to start and stop. That is his biggest issue in his game, is the inflexibility and the inability to start and stop either on pull-ups going full speed or around the rim. He has problems seeking contact, too, at the basket. So the thing about Lonzo is he has such weird skill voids. His handle isn't very good. His finishing isn't very good. If you look at him as a scorer, there's not a lot to like. I like him more off the ball. I've always been of that mindset. We'll see how much he can improve, but I don't know. I think he's not disappointing. Like you said, he's impacted at least winning basketball a little bit, which is rare for a rookie. But if you're looking at him as this kind of any guy with a self-gravity force with the ball as a point guard, I don't know if he's going to get there.
So yeah, it's very complex with Lonzo because in a lot of respects, he's helped the Lakers get to where they've been this year. I think the Lakers have been a pleasant surprise this year. Like them winning,
I agree.
They're 34, 35 wins, something like that right now. Like that's a positive. They're over their over-under for the season in Vegas. Their rookie class in general, their young players in general, I think have been a very positive reason for thinking that this rebuild could continue along positive tracks regardless of their success in free agency this summer. But I think I agree with you more than I agree with just like the blind optimism regarding Lonzo. If you just look at his like box score number, right? His negatives are very outliery concerning to me. The inflexibility in the lack of ball handling that you mentioned, this is stuff you and I have talked about now for over a year? Right?
Yep.
Like you and I have been doing this podcast for how long now, and we've been talking about it the whole damn time that this is going to be an issue for him going forward. You can go back and listen to the podcast Cole and I did discussing the top 5 prospects for each of us in this class, and that was something we immediately pointed out with Lonzo Ball, is that we think he's going to struggle to finish at the rim despite his off-ball dominance at the rim. And I guess my question to you is going to be, I generally agree with the idea of playing him off the ball. I just wonder if that makes him more of like a second draft candidate, because not even like second draft in the traditional sense of the term that I believe maybe John Hollinger or Kevin Pelton stated, whenever a guy gets bought out of that or gets his option declined in his 3rd or 4th year and then another team picks him up. But like by second draft, I mean just generally his second team, because he's going to want to be the point guard. He's going to want to be the guy who has the ball in his hands often. And if he isn't that guy, his father's going to get up in arms with the Lakers. And it's going to cause issues with whatever organization that he is a part of. And I just wonder if that's going to be kind of a crippling thing going forward. Like, is he going to be a guy that accepts more of a secondary role? Because I think that that's what we've seen so far, a guy who can incredibly impact winning with the way he moves the basketball and the way that he defends and the way that he creates an unselfish culture, but he just can't create enough offensively right now. He just cannot do it.
Exactly. And I think he is unselfish as far as I think he'll be willing to play a role and just fit into a team construct and do what he needs to do to win. That's kind of who he seems to be. He was even that way in college. Like, he runs the show in transition. He's still going to do that. But in the half court, especially with the Lakers run their scheme, he's off the ball a lot anyway. It's not like they run like James Harden, spread pick and roll, Lonzo's creating. It's going to take a very specific fit to optimize him. That's why I loved him in Philadelphia so much in the draft last year, because they had Simmons, they had Embiid, they had the primary creator types that Lonzo can go in and he can optimize those guys. That is Lonzo's best gift, is he makes great players even better, or good players great. But the problem with him is I don't think he can be that player himself. That was always my issue with him, and why he's so divisive and was so damn hard to rank last year was because you saw the stark positives, but there are stark negatives in the NBA game. I don't know. I don't know what to do with him moving forward. I'm not like concerned. I think he's going to be a quality player. I think he's going to be a quality starter. I've always been a fan of his floor because he's so damn smart and he has the physical tools, the positional size to matter, and he's an ultra great decision maker. That's something that you have to note with him. Is like, he is a ruthlessly good decision maker, like one of the best we've seen come around in a long time. He's going to be valuable. I can see how he's valuable on a winning team. It's just very hard to profile something like that because we haven't really seen anybody quite like this before. Yeah,
he's very unique, and I mean, he's been this way since high school. Like guys that do recruiting rankings in high school didn't really know what to do with them. Like, some people thought he was the best prospect in that class. Some people thought he was like 15th in that class. It's kind of crazy that the just totally polarizing opinion of Lonzo Ball just will continue to perpetuate itself going forward throughout the course of his career. Let's move on. Let's talk about Jayson Tatum. I would say he's probably been the second best player in this rookie class, right?
Yes, I would say him and Mitchell are the clear two top guys. Simmons isn't from this draft, but Simmons has been the clear best rookie.
Right, so 14 points a night, 5 rebounds a night, almost 2 assists a night, 47% from the field, 43% from three, 83% from the line. generally his impact on the team has been very positive. They are 6 points better offensively when he's on the floor, about 3 points better defensively when he's on the floor. Some of this is that he started every game this year for the Celtics. He's at 78 games, 78 starts, so he gets to play with very high-level players in a way that some of the players selected around him don't really get the chance to do. But at the same time, it's his impact on winning has been high. His kind of outbursts and flashes that we see as a scorer kind of every single night now are high. And I think that we should feel good about Jayson Tatum being like an all-star at some point.
Oh, I definitely feel good about that. I mean, he profiles right now. I'm not saying he'll be this. I think his ceiling's probably higher, but he's had like an Otto Porter kind of role on the Celtics, and that's tremendously valuable. We're talking about a rookie who's doing that kind of thing. I never expected him to defend like this, at least right away. He's been so good there as far as like switching, and I thought that the hips would be a problem in space, but he's compensated with his length. I think he's just a better athlete. Maybe he just wasn't fully healthy last year at Duke. He's just looked better to me on the floor, and then the shot, of course, he's been fantastic shooting the ball this year. I mean, he's in the 94th percentile in catch and shoot shots in the half court. Like that's getting it done. 79th percentile off the dribble. So he's done basically everything that he was criticized for last year as a prospect via defense and via 3-point shooting. He's offered them both at a supremely high level for a rookie. So I think you can't really see this as anything but a positive.
Yeah, the big thing with him for me is that early in his high school career, and like really even at the end of his high school career, he was a guy who loved the mid-range. He just ate in the mid-range the entire time. This year, he's taken 228 jump shots in the mid-range and 238 shots from three. That would have been totally reversed 2 years ago. Maybe even, not even reversed, but like it would have been probably 60% in the mid-range, 40% from three, as opposed to like 55% from three and 45% from 2-point mid-range. The way that he is so quickly adjusted to being willing to take threes is a really important factor for him and his career going forward. You and I kind of had some arguments about whether or not we liked his jump shot from three. I kind of liked it. You were a little bit more questionable, I think, for very valid reasons, kind of given the mechanics of his jump shot. But when a guy is that skilled, I just think that it's going to come along.
Yeah, and when the guy has this kind of work ethic, and that's something you noted at the time of the draft, was that this guy is really a hard worker. He's smart. He's going to improve, and he wants to improve. I think that's what we've seen with kind of the high character guys in this class, him and Donovan Mitchell. Those guys have increased their rate of improvement in the league because they had those traits. And that's just something that you have to give him credit for. I mean, he's bought into the construct like you noted. He's bought into his role, and he's really thrived in it. So I think even elements like moving off the ball, we've talked about this on past podcasts. I never really saw that at Duke. Maybe that was Duke's system being so isolation-based, but he's so much smarter than I thought he was on the floor on both sides of the ball. So that's really the difference with me. Of course, the shooting at this level is ridiculous for a rookie, but it's more like the intellect stuff. I see like the intelligence background with the work ethic now. I think he's going to be probably an all-star. Honestly, I think the ceiling is probably even a little bit higher than that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think he's going to be, I think he will have at least one season in the top 5 in scoring in the NBA. Like that's just kind of where I'm at this stage. It's the flashes that you see with the ball in his hands now too. It's not just all catch and shoot. I mean, he's able to attack closeouts in a significant way. He uses those long strides so well to just cover up swaths of ground as he's getting to the rim. It's a very impressive amount of growth throughout the course of the year, I think.
And he's been aggressive too on those closeouts. Like
confident.
He does
man.
the go. Yeah, confident, aggressive. He does the go and catch or quick rip through the moves, gets to his spots. He's not hesitant at all. Everything's decisive with him. And I think that's something that probably Brad Stevens has tried to instill is just being confident, being decisive, and just going right away. And that's something he's really thrived at. The long strides are fantastic. I mean, the finishing at the rim, that's been his one weakness. He's 26th percentile at the hoop. We talked about that in the past as far as not being like an uber explosive athlete. He's compensated a little bit with those horizontal length extension finishes. We'll see where that goes. He doesn't need that to be like the kind of impact player that we think he can be, but that might put him even higher over the top if he can really get to the rim and make people pay around there.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about Josh Jackson. Kind of a weird year for Josh Jackson, I would say. Really was bad, I would say, to start the year. For the first 2 months of the year, I thought he was one of the more disappointing rookies. And then maybe like midway through January, maybe at the end of January even, he started to turn it around. And I think over the course of the last 2 months, really, 2.5 months, I think he's actually been pretty good and makes me think that he's going to be fine at this level. 13 points, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, pretty solid defense, but the jump shot is obviously not kind of panned out in the way that I think we hoped that it had a chance, but always had significant reservations about.
He was the one guy out of the elites that I was most concerned about earlier in the year. Like, I watched him play, and you just didn't see what made him, like, not a special prospect, but a pretty damn good one, was that he had the instincts. Like, offensively, he would pass the ball, he'd move the ball, he played well in a team construct at Kansas. He did the small things, which is what I wanted to see from him. Like Lonzo did that when he translated. I didn't see that from Josh, and he's starting to do that more as far as making the extra pass, skipping the ball. That kind of stuff's really important for him, because I don't think he's going to be an elite defender. I think he's going to be a positive one. And I don't think he's ever going to be an elite shooter or an elite personal creator. So really, he's got to bring value in those ancillary aspects of the game, but I'm not worried about him anymore. He's more to what I expected now coming into the season.
So yeah, now over the course of the last 30 games for him, he's at 18.5 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists a night while shooting 45% from the field. That's good enough for him, right? He's doing this on a bad team that's been out of the competition basically since the point where this run started, but that's fine. He needs to just kind of play confident basketball and kind of get his sea legs under him in a way that I think he has over the course of that time. Now, the ceiling here is going to be muted unless he gets the jump shot. I just kind of actively believe that. As a scorer, I would think that 20 points is probably his ceiling a night unless the jump shot comes around, and it'll probably be a relatively inefficient 20 points unless he can start knocking down free throws, because his athleticism is translating. That much is very clear from the last 2.5 months and the last 30 games. His athleticism is high-level athleticism for even NBA players. They struggle to stay in front of him whenever he has the ball in his hands and whenever he wants to just attack and go and create either in the early break or just flat out in transition. He can go and he can get up and really blow by defenders and finish above the rim. The question is going to be just, what is the ceiling there if the jump shot isn't going to come around enough?
He's made some really impressive shots in some games I've seen recently. It's over contest, really high arcing shots. I'm not sure how much I buy any of that yet. It's too small of a sample, and it just overall the mechanics don't really pass the eye test. I follow Kellen Olson, of course, pretty closely, and he covers him relentlessly, and there's been some differentiating mechanics based on movement, based on catch and shoot. That's something I'm going to go back after the season and look for and just see overall how the mechanics and the jump shot overall have progressed. But yeah, I think the production down the stretch, we have to include this as well. He's not contributing to winning, and that's not his fault. The Suns are just not in position to really have that circumstance exist.
Really bad basketball team.
Exactly. So he's really being allowed higher usage. Devin Booker's been out, so he's playing a role that's more of a primary scorer role, and he's been okay at it, and that's fine for a rookie. It's just now he meets a threshold where I'm not concerned about him.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried at all either. He's actually been really good over the course of the last couple months here. Still, though, his season is going to be 13 points a game on a 48% true shooting percentage, while his defense, I'd say, overall throughout the course of the season has probably been negative, even though it's been a little bit better recently, right?
Yeah, I was really concerned about early in the season. You saw guys like Tyreek Evans that were just blowing by him. And now at least I think it seems like he's trying harder. I never, again, saw him as an elite defensive player. I think he has really good agility, but not great. And obviously we talked about the strength, the lack of length. He just doesn't have that one differentiating factor outside of being, pretty dynamic laterally. It's more like the team defense stuff. But a lot of that I think was just, in the early couple of games that were biasing me with Earl Watson, and he was getting guys apparently not to rotate. So Jackson wasn't making the rotations we saw him make at Kansas, but he's starting to do that again.
Let's move on. De'Aaron Fox was Sacramento's pick at number 5. Kind of a weird year, I would say, for De'Aaron Fox. Started 58 games. He's averaged 11 points. He's up over 4 assists. The problem is that he is shooting less than 30% from 3, which has always been the concern with Fox. And he's at 43% from 2-point range. His true shooting percentage is actually worse than Josh Jackson's, and we just talked about the fact that we were significantly concerned with Josh Jackson for half the year. His turnover rate's at 16%, which isn't exactly great for a point guard, although for a rookie, you can get around that. I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit worried with De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, he's been to form again because I was lower on him coming into the draft just for the reasons you kind of noted. It's worth noting, though, that his situation is not good. I mean, playing with two more conventional bigs most of the season. He started the season, of course, playing next to George Hill. So they run a lot of horns action. So he was kind of in the corner as the two guard. At least he's getting to run the show now. He looks more comfortable. Like, I was legitimately concerned that he could not read the floor earlier this season. I mean, he was making some really bad skip passes, like right into defenders. It just seems like he was pressing the issue. It's going to come down to he has to do one of two things. He either has to add strength to his core without losing his quickness, or he has to become, a much better jump shooter. Otherwise, those are the two weaknesses in his game because he can't absorb contact well. He's uber aggressive, so he'll jump into you. But as far as maintaining balance at times, he struggles. He has to shoot a pull-up at a higher percentage and get guys to respect his gravity there so he can open up, driving lanes and stuff. And he's going to need to play with a better circumstance as far as personnel. Ideally, you'd get him with like a pick and pop big to open up the lane. He just doesn't. When you play two bigs with De'Aaron Fox, you kind of waste him.
Where I'm a little bit worried is just how the frame didn't really play up. I mean, you kind of mentioned that with the core strength issue and the fact that his defense didn't really quite pan out as much as we kind of hoped that it would whenever he was kind of seen as a great two-way player, certainly throughout his youth career, but also as an NBA draft prospect coming into the year. Catch and shoot, 19th percentile. Jump shots off the dribble, 28th percentile. Those are all issues for him as a player. The runner stuff didn't really translate at all. He's in the 35th percentile there. 33rd percentile around the basket. If you remember correctly, I was someone who believed that, even though he's skinny, he does finish extremely well in college. I wonder if that plays up. It didn't play up. He's only at 52% this season in half-court settings around the rim. I don't think that it's like incredibly worrisome, but I'm a little bit worried, I would say. Like, I'm starting to wonder if he's going to be like a low-end starting point guard, basically.
Yeah, and finishing definitely varies. There's a lot of variance in finishing, so I expect that to improve. I'm not like concerned about that aspect. I just never saw him as a high-level finisher, and if he's not going to be a high-level shooter, it's kind of the conclusion you just came to, maybe a low-end starter. That's kind of how I've always seen him. We'll see. It's worth noting that rookie lead guards are never good, like ever. So I'm not surprised by anything that he's done this year. So I'm not it's not disconcerting for me. I'm not looking at him. I'm not alarmed. I kind of saw this already. We'll see how good he becomes in the pick and roll. Again, I think situation is so crucial here as far as getting more situations where the lane is opened. I think the most troubling aspect with his finishing to me is he's just not getting to the rim nearly as much as I thought he did. And I think some of that's based on the lack of gravity of his shot. But at the same time, I think it's also that the situation isn't ideal. So he's going to be a big year two leap guy. I want to see how he does over summer and then next year. I think the defense point you hit on was absolutely spot on. Like him and Dennis Smith, we knew Dennis Smith wasn't a good defender. But Fox's defense has definitely not been impressive. And this is someone who last year, when Lonzo was going against Fox, the narrative was, De'Aaron's such a great defender. Lonzo's light years better than all of these guys defensively, all the guards. So I think we can learn something from that as far as the lack of strength, especially being able to be knocked off his spots. That really hurts him.
Yeah, they're about 4.5 to 5 points worse defensively per 100 possessions when De'Aaron Fox is on the floor, and this is not a good defensive team to begin with. And he's played with quite a few different lineups at this stage. Like, it's not like a situation where, he's playing with the bench guys and they just struggle defensively. Like, he's played with quite a few different lineups now, where his most used lineup is only 174 minutes. His 10th most used lineup is already at 40 minutes. So, this is a situation that we're going to have to monitor, I think, going forward. You mentioned the pick and roll issues as well, the fact that he's not getting to the lane. I would point out the fact that he has a 20.3% turnover rate in pick and roll scenarios. That's just a disaster in synergy numbers. That's way too high for a guy like him. He needs to get that under control, I think. If you include the passes, it's 13.3, which makes it a little bit better, but it's not like he's out here creating a crazy amount of offense for his teammates either.
Yep, that's a good point. And I've only seen intervals. Crazy enough, I think I've probably seen 4 full Kings games this year, and Fox has hit either a game-tying or a game-winning shot in, I think, 3 of the 4, or maybe even all 4. So I'm his good luck charm, weirdly enough, but I'm really looking forward to watching him next year. I think it's way too early to get concerned, but some of the concerns that were always there are definitely prevalent in his rookie season.
Right. I'm not, like, when I say I'm concerned, I'm saying I'm worried he's only going to be, like, a starting point guard. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sitting here, like, writing off the dude's career at this stage by any stretch. Like, I think he's going to be, like, probably fine.
Yeah, I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm talking about, like, everybody who didn't like Fox already. Now it's like he's bad or whatever. I'm not even there, and I was always a skeptic. We'll see. I think he was never going to be good in year 1. Let's see how he does year 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, Jonathan Isaac has only played 500 minutes this season. Been some positives, been some negatives. I'd certainly say the positive is he is just as monstrous defensively as we thought he would be coming into his rookie season. The negatives, he really just can't finish inside at all. He is so weak physically that it is an issue for him to kind of do really anything scoring the basketball right now.
Yeah, and he's 17th percentile as far as catch and shoot in the half court. He has to shoot. We have to start there. If he's going to be like anything valuable offensively, he's not like a rim roller type. He's not going to set a pick and then dive to the rim and catch an explosive lob. That's not his game. Yeah. He was always more of a catch and shoot guy. He has to open up closeout areas. He doesn't have like the best burst off the ball. He's going to have to play the 4 predominantly, maybe even the small ball 5 like we talked about in the past. It's all about the shot to me. Like that is the main factor that will decide his career. I think the defense is there. I think he's the best overall defensive player in this class as far as team defender. Like whenever I watch him, that dude is making plays. He reacts quickly. I love what I'm seeing from him defensively. It just all comes down to the offense. Yeah, 90.6
defensive rating when both him and Aaron Gordon are on the floor this year. They've been on the floor together for like 170 minutes or something. That's the kind of athleticism that you're looking for in a modern combo forward unit. He does need to shoot, though, if he's going to play next to Aaron Gordon. Like, everything about this situation with Jonathan Isaac is going to be dependent on him shooting the basketball. He can be one of the best role players in the entire NBA. I think that was our kind of projection for him. That was our ceiling for him whenever he entered the draft. I've not seen much to dissuade me from that. I would like to see him finish better around the basket, and I would like to see him shoot threes, maybe at a slightly higher clip. He's only taken 46 threes, hitting them at 35%. Like, the clip is fine. I'd like to see him shoot more threes just in general, though. But yeah, ultimately it's going to come down to if he can shoot the basketball. If he can, great. He's going to be an awesome role player. If he can't, that's going to be an issue for him, and he probably Orlando at least will have to make a decision on him versus Aaron Gordon, I think.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I really have nothing to add.
Let's move on then. Let's talk about Lauri Markkanen, who I think has probably been one of the 5 best players in this rookie class so far this season. 15 points a night, 7.5 rebounds. Has knocked down threes at the clip that we were hoping he would. 140 made threes this year at a 36% clip. 50% from 2-point range is great. 85% from the line. Overall, it's just been I think solidly positive player. He's a positive efficiency player on high usage. And I will say this, the defense has not been as awful as what, a lot of people thought it would. I was always a little bit more bullish on his ability to move in space, but I would say it's been fine so far, even as a rookie.
He's a guy that's definitely exceeded my expectation in multiple respects, especially defensively. Like, he's still not much as far as protecting the rim at all, and I don't never see that really getting to a high level, but he's more athletic. He moves just much better than we got to see it at Arizona for some reason. I mean, he's put in more situations where he's involved in, like, pick and roll. You see him helping recover. He's just moving better than I thought he would. He's rebounding a lot better than I thought he would. Like, the 23.6% defensive rebounding rate, that's pretty solid playing next to another big especially, so he just generally more athletic. He's a better leaper. Like, he can, finish explosively. I don't want to say like he's a crazy athlete, but he's finished explosively around the rim, above the rim when he has space. Like, there's been a lot to like in his game. Of course, some of the aspects that made him a special shooter, his diversity as far as coming off screens. You see Hoiberg run some like pin down sets for him. He's taken, I think, 111 possessions off screens this year. When have you ever seen that from a big? It's amazing. Ridiculous. Like, shots off the dribble. He has diversity. So that's why I liked him as a shooter. And I was really, really skeptical on his defense. I'll be the first one to admit that. If he can defend at a reasonably respectable level, probably slightly below average, but maybe around average, you're going to be able to leverage his shooting a lot. And again, we talked about Højbjerg in the past. I think Højbjerg has done a fantastic job with him.
Yeah, like with the defense factor, I think a lot of people just don't understand how to contextualize steal and block rates in a lot of ways. Like Arizona's turnover rates throughout the course of Sean Miller's tenure, because he plays a very conservative pack line style defense, they're always going to be lower for those guys than they are for players in other situations. And I think that the way that Markkanen's numbers there were below the typical baseline for guys really set a lot of folks up for problems there, just because of the lack of contextual information. Offensively, he's just so diverse as a scorer. He's going to be a 20-point per game scorer probably next year even. He's that good. He is such great touch. He has great movement off of screens. He's a great off-ball mover in general. He just understands how to get to his spots and understands how to score efficiently once he gets to those spots.
Yeah, he was seen as like a safe, immediate impact player. Not, I don't want to say impact, like high-level impact, but just you could see it translating immediately to operate functionally. And that's what we've seen. He's exceeded that bar even pretty comfortably, too. So he was more of a plug-and-play type. Guys that play off the ball that are bigs that can shoot the ball like he can, they're going to find a role, I think, a little bit quicker just because they're not like primary handlers and stuff, but he still deserves a ton of credit for that. I don't really remember his instincts defensively at Arizona. Like I'm not as good. I'm much better now at assessing instincts than I was last year. But yeah, I mean, his numbers were historically low as far as stealing blocks. That's part scheme, part role. Like he was playing out of position a lot in Arizona too. Like he was playing a little bit of the three, I remember. So those are all important factors in the analysis process.
Yeah, and let's just move on now to talk Frank Ntilikina. Really useful defender right now for New York. Probably one of the worst offensive players in the league right now, right?
Yes, exactly. I think the pick and roll defense, his defense is really translated. Like his length matters a ton on the ball, like defending pick and roll. His strength, he's so physical. Like I think I watched a couple games earlier this year. He was like moving Julius Randle out of his spots. Like he was legit walking him out of the paint. Like I love that kid defensively. I think there's a ton there. He's not like an ultra quick twitch athlete, but he tries so hard, and the length and the strength matters. It just comes down to the offense, and he's been. I mean, they tried to play him point guard. I've always seen him more as a two guard. We'll see how that kind of mixes in. I just never saw the on-ball dynamism. What about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty worried about the offense. He takes a lot of possessions in pick and roll. He's right at that 20% mark turnover-wise in pick and roll settings. 19th percentile finishing around the basket, despite being 6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan. That's really scary. 49% of those shots have gone in for him. Doesn't really have a floater runner game yet. Not really making shots off the catch, though, either. That's the biggest concern for me right now, because that, I think, would give him a relative floor as an offensive player. Like if he can be someone who can play off the ball, knock down catch and shoot shots, and make really good extra passes, that's an awesome role player in today's NBA. But we always thought it was going to take time with Ntilikina. He was probably the most project-y player out of any of the like top 10 picks, other than maybe Zach Collins at number 10. We kind of figured it would take time. He was his offensive kind of where he was coming into the draft class was lower than any other player's side of the floor, in my opinion. He just didn't really get the chance to play the role that we had hoped that he would throughout the course of his youth career. Like even at France, when he was playing for their youth national teams, he played as like a point guard that just kind of got by blowing by dudes physically. He was just stronger than they were and more physically developed than they were at the time. So I'm worried about the offensive game. I think it's going to be a concern going forward. We really need to see how he develops throughout summer league and throughout year two to see kind of just how bad the Knicks screwed this pickup, because I think they kind of screwed the pickup.
Yeah, and I think the defense, like you noted, he can be a super valuable role player, and that's what I've always thought. I do believe in the catch and shoot shooting. I think that's the one element of his game where I think improves. Even like last year in international play, he was pretty spectacular at that, and he has the confidence. I think in time, that is that aspect of his game that I think is going to improve the most. The finishing stuff, he's only gotten to the rim 70 times in the half court. That was always my concern, is like, how does he finish there? He's not super explosive. He's not dynamically explosive out of his moves getting to the basket. Can he take contact? Can he finish around the rim? I think that he's really, really raw as a finisher, and that's the issue with having a point guard like that is, can he get to the rim? And now they, of course, have Trey Burke, who's giving them excellent minutes, and Ntilikina is playing more, off the ball. Maybe that's how they view him moving forward. I'm not super concerned about him yet. I'm not willing to go to the point where, I think that, it's an alarming concern. Like you said, I think he's the youngest guy in the class. We expected a pretty large transformation gap here, and it just comes down to, can he be like a George Hill type of initiator? Can he have enough off the dribble to make plays? I believe in his passing, like his pick and roll passing. I know he turns the ball over a ton. Some of that's handle, some of that's bad reads, but he does see the floor pretty well, especially on pocket passes. He can make skips. He's a really, really willing passer that gets the ball to KP. So overall, I definitely want to see him in year 2 and year 3, see if he makes any kind of leap. But there is credence to the fact that this guy might be an off-ball player. And there was a lot of pushback from Knicks fans earlier this season. Like, this guy's a point guard. He sees the floor. I get that. My issue was never he can't pass as a point guard. My issue was he can't score as a point guard.
Well, yeah, and I think it took time. It's still taking time for him to develop as a decision maker at the point guard position. He's turning the ball over a lot, and I think it's going to take some time for him to kind of grow into that role. We'll see what happens whenever the Knicks likely have a new coach next season too. That could certainly play a pretty significant role in his development, but I'm not. I would say I'm optimistic on him being a really good role player, like really, really good role player. I'm not quite as high on him being a star by any stretch.
I agree.
Dennis Smith at number 9. Dennis Smith has had a fascinating rookie season on a lot of levels just because of the amount of usage that he's allowed to undertake. 15 points a night, 5 assists a night, 4 rebounds a night. Those are really, really strong numbers for a rookie. Not really shooting the ball as we expected. Not really finishing all that well inside as we expected. The turnover rate has not been quite as bad as what I would have anticipated if you told me he would have a 29% usage rate as a rookie. 15%, that's actually pretty workable for a rookie point guard. Where do we even start with Dennis Smith in the experience that has been him as a rookie point guard in the NBA?
I've probably seen more of him than anybody else. I watched the Mavericks a lot just for him. He's really fun, and I just like to test my own analysis process because I was super high. If people remember, I had him number 2 in my board in that 2 to 7 tier. I loved him in several respects, but I also realized he was more of a ceiling upside play, similar to Fox. But I just liked Dennis's physical stature more, and I believed in his shot functionally as far as mechanics better. It's definitely been a ride. I mean, he drives me crazy sometimes.
All the time, not even sometimes. Yeah. All the time.
He's so damn talented. I think he sees the floor better than he gets credit for, but he'll make the laziest effing passes. And I'm like, you just have no margin for error to do that. He'll throw a one-handed pass, one pass away, and it'll be to the guy's feet. Yeah. It's you can't do that. Just make the simple play. So there's a lot of things that I don't think that he's to the level of badness as far as feel that a lot of people do. Some people just think he has no idea how to play basketball. I'm not at that point. No. I think there's a threshold. Yeah, I think he's just got just enough. I'm not saying he's a high-level thinker. Of course he's not. But I do expect the finishing to improve. I'm really high on his ability to absorb contact. He's shown good proclivity to adjust in midair. What he doesn't do well is draw fouls. And that's something that this whole rookie league guard class has to really improve on. They just don't have the instincts to sweep under, draw fouls. They try Dennis tries to go at Gobert full speed. You're just not going to win like that all the time. You can't just finish over these guys athletically because he knows he's the most athletic guy on the court for the most part. So there's just little intricacies of his game that he has to work out. The shooting, I think a lot of that's footwork from what I've seen. He struggles to decelerate on pull-ups. If you look at his unguarded catch and shoot shots, he's in the 94th percentile. When he has his feet set, I think I like his mechanics a ton as far as he gets that sweep and sway motion. He's got good power in his shot, but he really has to work on ironing out how to slam on the brakes and on balance transition into his shot, something that Trae Young is incredible at. He has to improve there like a lot of other rookie league guards. I want to see how he shoots next year for sure.
I honestly just don't even know how to attack him. So he's never gotten his feet under him as a shooter. That's just always been why he's been kind of a poor shooter throughout his career. I do like the fact that he's taken 63 shots at the 94th percentile on unguarded catch and shoot shots. That's great. It's just not something he ever does. He's taking one of those a game, and that's just such a small amount of what he does. What do we think of the fact that the Mavericks a really bad basketball team have been much better without him on the floor this year. Like they're 104.6 offensive rating with him on the floor, 109 offensive rating with him off the floor, 112 defensive rating with him on the floor, 106 defensive rating with him off the floor.
Well, defense makes a ton of sense. I think offense, you could attest that some of it to Carlisle. He has those wizard three-point guard lineups early in the season that were just absolutely eviscerating teams, like Barea, Devin Harris, like that contingent of guys, Yogi Ferrell. But defense, yeah. I mean, overall offense, I mean, he's got a 29% usage and he's not efficient. That's going to kill your offense. He was never going to be efficient his first year. Defensively, my God, it's off ball is just sometimes, I think it's gotten better. Honestly, earlier this season, I thought he was maybe a little banged up in the first 20 games or so, but he was just, the effort level was excruciating. I think he's trying harder now, and he has to try. If he doesn't try, then he doesn't have the physical tools to compensate. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Cole, I don't know if you've tried online dating, but chances are that if you have, you've run into lazy text messages, dead-end conversations, random matches that don't turn into dates. But have you seen the success stories from over at eHarmony? Real people finding real matches with eHarmony. I personally do not use eHarmony. I have had plenty of friends, though, that have had a lot of success with this. A couple of my friends out here in Los Angeles got together via eHarmony. They are together now for 6 months. It is fantastic. The software that they use to match you is just great. They take steps that other dating sites don't in order to find you a more compatible match. It is built to help you find lasting, meaningful relationships, not just a shallow hookup site. They've helped over 1 million people find their perfect match, and they use decades of science, data, psychological research, everything like that to send you the right matches. They bring compatible people together. And right now, my listeners can get a free month with eHarmony when they sign up for a 3-month subscription. Enter my code GAMETHEORY, that's GAMETHEORY, no spaces, at checkout. Stop waiting and start your journey to a satisfying, meaningful relationship. It can be fun to play around with online dating apps, but when you're ready to fall in love with someone and have a meaningful relationship, there's one app that's built to bring you real love. That is eHarmony. Come see how eHarmony can change your life. Go to eHarmony.com and get started. Enter my code GAMETHEORY at checkout. Cole, let's move on and talk about Zach Collins. Zach Collins was barely playing at the beginning of the season for the Portland Trail Blazers, but over the course of really the second half of the season, he's kind of become an integral part of what they do off the bench. Yeah, he's starting to show the skill set that made him so valuable in the draft. As far as, I don't want to say full-fledged unicorn because he hasn't shot the ball to that level, but he's a guy who has really great reaction on defense. He reacts so quickly to things. I think even on pull-ups, on switches with guards, you see that. And that's just an underrated part of his game. I watched the Clippers game. It was probably his best game of the season. He had 15 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists in that one. I think he's going to be fine. Of course, he's always going to be compared to Donovan Mitchell. Portland fans wanted Mitchell, and that's going to be the baseline that he's compared to. But I think that maybe some people hit the panic button too quickly with him. It's going to take him more time to adjust physically. We even saw that in Summer League. He really struggled with that added strength level and just going against these caliber of athletes. So he's going to be a year 3, year 4 guy as far as maybe contributing impactfully to winning. But as a reserve guy, I think he's kind of impressed me a little bit lately.
I would even go as far as to say it would not surprise me if he was a year 2 guy in terms of making an impact on winning. I'm not sitting here and telling you he's going to be the Trailblazers starting center next season, but he's actually been pretty good. He helps them a lot offensively when he's on the floor, just because he is at least a little bit of a threat from 3. He's taking 2 3-pointers a game. He's obviously not necessarily this incredible defender yet because he can't really hold his ground. But I think with an off season of, eating right and training in the right circumstances, he can be a 20-minute, 25-minute a game guy next year.
I agree with that. And I think one thing about him that's impressed me more is he's more functional as a passer. At Gonzaga, he was a horrendous passer. And I think that maybe the space of the NBA, they run some dribble handoff sets to him. They let him maybe hit a backdoor cutter at times. And he's shown better accuracy and better proclivity there. And I think that's important for the kind of scheme that they run.
Yeah, no question. I mean, he's going to need to finish a little bit better around the basket as a big guy, but as soon as he develops the strength and ability to put on some weight here and some actual physical physical power, I think he's going to be fine. Like, I've seen enough of him now, just having watched the Blazers during this run, that makes me think that, yeah, I think he's probably at some point going to be a starting NBA center.
I agree with you.
So let's move on. There's really not a whole lot to say about him other than that. I mean, it's not like he's out here playing like a billion minutes a night. Same with Malik Monk, in my opinion. In a lot of ways, this is kind of a throwaway season for Malik Monk. I don't know if he's been the least impressive guy in the lottery, but he probably is up there along with Luke Kennard, right?
Yeah, and it's something really interesting. He's starting to play more, and he's actually been pretty damn good over the last 5 games. And take for what it's worth as far as late season progression, but he has not had a solidified role this year. I mean, Steve Clifford wants rookies to earn their minutes, and he's been playing behind, their bench rotation guys. Like, he's not going to get primary scorer responsibility off the bench when you have a Jeremy Lamb. So he's finally getting minutes, and I think you start to see the dynamism that he shows as a pull-up shooter, which is something he struggled with as well as far as footwork there goes earlier in the season that I've noticed. So when he irons that out, this guy is a legitimate high-level shooting prospect. He can get separation at will. He has enough handle there. He comes off screens, which I don't think they've used him enough at, but maybe I'm just not viewing the overall sample there. But as a pull-up shooter, as a spot-up shooter, I like where he is. I think he might eventually have to play point guard, not necessarily be your primary creator, but play next to like a wing initiator to negate his lack of size on the wing. You might have to play him next to maybe a second contract guy next to a Ben Simmons type, for example. That's probably his ideal role, but he's shown some proclivity as far as his pick and roll play. Like, he can pass the ball. He's shown decent reads this year. I think that in the NBA, more space, and he has self-gravity as a scorer. Like, that guy, you have to fear pulling up. You have to chase him over the top because he will kill you.
Since March 8th, he's averaging like 11 points a game on 40% shooting, including 40% from three-point range. Or I'm sorry, 39% from three-point range. That stuff is good for a bench guy like him. Like, that's kind of where he needs to be going forward. The problem is that if you look at his overall sample this year, it is a disaster.
It's bad.
Negative 10.6 offensive rating, 101 offensive rating with him 101 offensive rating with him on the floor, 112 offensive rating with him off the floor, 115 offensive rating or defensive rating with him on the floor, 108 defensive rating with him off the floor. Part of this is obviously who he's playing with, like lineup wise. We know the effect that Kemba Walker has on Charlotte lineups. He has not gotten a chance to play a ton with Kemba Walker this year, and I would be interested to see those two play together a little bit, but like, what do you do there, I guess, defensively if you play him with Kemba Walker?
Yeah, and then that's the trade-off that's always been the worry with playing him next to like a smaller point guard. If you played him next to a bigger guard who could guard, opposing twos, and you just let him defend point of attack, not like he's great there, but he at least has the athleticism and he has the size to contest at that point. I liked his situation at Charlotte just because I really trust Clifford to utilize guys right as far as coming off screens. I trust him to leverage his off-ball shooting, but as far as roster fit, I think that's the argument right there, is that he's not ideal next to Kemba. What do you do moving forward? Do you play Monk at point guard? We thought that Kemba could get traded at the trade deadline. I was really interested to see how Malik Monk would handle that increased offensive usage at point guard.
Let's move on. Let's talk about number 12, Luke Kennard. Played about 1,400 minutes so far this year. Starts a couple of games. He's averaging 7 points, 2 rebounds, a couple of assists a night. He's shooting 44% from the field, 40% from 3. In most circumstances, I feel like Detroit would be relatively okay with what they've seen from Luke Kennard.
Yeah, he's been fine. I mean, the shots translate. He was a dynamic and diverse shooter at Duke. I've not seen a lot of Pistons, so forgive me for that. But his shooting overall, it just looks like it passes the eye test. I mean, from what I have seen in the numbers, I mean, he's 98th percentile in open or unguarded catch and shoot threes in the half court. That's ridiculous. And, he has that compact release and the quick release. It's just, again, this is going to be compared to Donovan Mitchell the entire time. That's going to be the point of relativity is Kennard looks like a nice rotation player, but you passed on maybe the best player in the draft.
Yeah, and he plays the same position as you. That's going to be a problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's going to be a useful player. I don't have any real qualms about saying that at this stage. He's going to be valuable. He's going to be able to, I think, even play maybe a little bit of lead guard at some point. He's that good. Like, their offense runs much better when he's on the floor just because of the degree of spacing that he provides. The fact that he helps them move the ball, it seems like a little bit more. And his shooting just helps them space the floor so much. I will note as well, he has not been like a total disaster defensively like I thought he would be. It's just all relative at this stage. And, you know, if we could talk about him as a player in his own right and not talk about him in comparison to them selecting him over Donovan Mitchell, it would be much easier to just kind of say, yeah, he's going to be fine. But it's really difficult to do that whenever the Detroit Pistons have so desperately needed a two guard with dynamic shot creation ability for a long time. And, you know, Donovan Mitchell is just dominating in so many different ways right now.
Yeah, I had Kennard in like the early 20s ranked. I wasn't completely sold on his defense, especially translating to even like a functionally capable level. And I questioned how much separation he could provide, but I did like the instincts and I like the shot diversity. So I was probably even maybe a little bit low on him. We'll see how everybody else in the class irons out. It's a pretty damn strong top 20 though, as far as this class goes. So I think he is well deserving of mention in that area. It's just, he just doesn't have the same kind of ceiling as a guy like Mitchell.
Let's talk about Donovan. Donovan goes number 13 overall to Utah. He's been fine.
I'd say above average.
Yeah, he's been solid. Donovan Mitchell, 20 points a night, 4 assists a night, 4 rebounds a night. He's been absurd this season in every single regard. His efficiency is up to 54% after just being like the fact that he's a 54% true shooting guy right now after the total dumpster fire that was his start of the season. Like, if you remember his first 12 games, he was at like 39% true shooting or something.
It was bad.
It was awful. And he, as soon as they like really started to, you know, kind of give him some rope and allow him to do whatever he wanted and lead the offense, it's just been game over. I mean, he's going to get votes for all NBA, and I'm going to be like, well, that's kind of crazy, but it's not like the dumbest thing in the world.
It's just the circumstance, too. I mean, his individual skills are pretty well established. It's just how he's been able to help the Jazz, who, of course, lost Gordon Hayward. There's just so much moving parts. Like, Gobert hasn't been there the entire season. And he's kind of handled a high usage role. I mean, he's the second highest usage guy in this class, and he's doing it efficiently, or at least relatively efficiency, especially for a rookie, damn well efficient. And that's incredible. We just don't see this very often.
Like, he's doing it for a playoff team. Like,
for a legitimate playoff team.
Yeah, it's not like the Michael Carter-Williams thing or the Dennis Smith thing this year. Like, he's taking on incredible usage and leading them to the playoffs. It's insane.
In the West, yeah, it's pretty incredible. Like, after the trade deadline, or maybe before, I can't remember, they won like 10 or 11 straight games, and he was vital in that. I mean, they need his creation, and he's not like a high-level point guard yet. He's still working out the kinks, but I actually think his tape is more impressive from what I've seen than the numbers as far as his assists. Yeah. I think he has to shoot a lot because he is the guy that, you know, has to put the ball in the hoop from the perimeter on that team. So I don't know where to start with him. I mean, he's so damn impressive. He's my favorite kind of individual person to come into the league in a while. He's so easy to root for. Yeah. I listened to a couple podcasts, or one of the podcasts he was on, and like within the first 5 minutes, I was just like, holy shit, this guy is just so damn impressive. Blew you away as far as his ability to, his self-awareness, all of that is there. And I think that's really important. Like, he knows what he has to work on. He's worked on his finishing. We see the length extension finishes now. He's excelled there. We see the driving kick vision, learning from Rubio. He seems like a quick study, and his rate of development is just absurd.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of tell the story of when I first met Donovan Mitchell. He was at Adidas Nations before his sophomore year at Louisville, and this dude, like, when you're out in LA at Adidas Nations, like most dudes, they go back to the hotel, play some video games, hang out with their friends who are in town as well from Los Angeles, from all over the country. Donovan Mitchell was literally the last person in the gym getting up jump shots because he thought that he shot poorly in an exhibition game at Adidas Nations. And I talked to him about it afterward, hung out. His mom came into town. He comes from a really, really, like, you know, solid family. Like, he comes from just people who have raised him well. And he is still legitimately one of the most impressive people I've gotten a chance to speak with as well. I have always been a big Donovan Mitchell guy. I'm so happy that he is performing in the way that he has so far throughout his NBA career. And I hope that he continues to end up being like a top 5 scorer for a decade, because having that guy be awesome is so fun for the league.
Absolutely. I can't put it any better than that.
So let's go on number 14, and then we're going to kind of get more scattershot in who we talk about in depth. Bam Adebayo. I've been a big fan of what I've seen from Bam this year in just about every single role player way that you can imagine. He's kind of a perfect fit for what Miami wants to do due to his athleticism, shooting 50% from the field, 7 points a game, 6 rebounds a night. He actually passes the ball a little bit better than what I anticipated coming out of Kentucky. Above average shooting percentage, 22% defensive rebounding rate, hits the offensive glass. Just a already tailor-made role player to the point where I think he's probably going to be a full-time starter for Miami relatively soon, aka when they trade Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah. I'm so impressed with how he's been able to acclimate to how they're using him. So Miami has to rely a lot on like off movement shooting to create, because they don't have any like dynamic perimeter creators outside of Goran Dragic. So they use Bam in like a lot of dribble handoff situations where he makes reads in the moment, and he's been really good there. I thought like he's so good as a screener. Of course, we know the frame, but his willingness to kind of fill that role offensively, really impressive to me. And then defensively, I'm still not sure about his rim protection. I know he can absorb contact and his strength, but what he can do really well that I've seen is play off guys like Giannis, like 3 or 4 feet, and then be able to absorb the blows in space. And that's really, really underrated from a switch defender. Julius Randle can kind of do that too. 2 big body guys who just have the girth and the strength to hold up against bigger wing players on switches, and of course smaller wing players. So that's how they've kind of leveraged him. And I thought that, Spoelstra is a great coach. He's an elite coach. And the way they've kind of picked up on his ability to pick things up quickly. Like, he was a quick study. There was an article that came out about him after the draft that was like, this guy, he has it there mentally. He understands things. And I think you see that on the floor in his first season.
Yep. No, I totally agree with that. Nothing else really to add there. Let's kind of go a little bit more quickly here through the rest of this first round. Justin Jackson, 7 points a night, 3 rebounds a night. Looks to be what should become a solid rotation player, but he needs to shoot better than 32% from 3.
Exactly. He has to shoot. What do you think about that trade in retrospect? Would you take Zach Collins now over both Justin Jackson and then Harry Giles? Is that a no-brainer for you?
I would take them over those two for sure. I mean, I would have taken John Collins at number 15 if I was Sacramento, just because I had John Collins in the lottery last year. But like I still would rather have the idea of pick number 15 and 20 ahead of Zach Collins, but I would still probably also rather have Zach Collins than what Sacramento decided to do with the picks.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was getting at. I'm fine with Justin Jackson. He seems like a rotation wing potential. I don't think he adds a ton of value. We talked about the narrow frame. I don't think he does much defensively. And then offensively, he really has to shoot. But he does have great touch. Like, they run him on some of these pin-down curls where he gets those floaters. You just can't really live on that at the NBA level. That's a tough road. Yeah,
super high field guy, too. Just,
yes.
Kind of knows how to make plays. Justin Patton has played all of 4 minutes this season. I've never been super duper high on Justin Patton, but what do we think of like Minnesota deciding to utilize the pick that they stole from Chicago in the Jimmy Butler trade on him?
I mean, why would you take another center when you already have Towns? That's kind of my read on it. I mean, I guess if you thought that Patton would be a high-level backup.
And Gorgie Dieng.
Yeah. Yeah, point well made. So I don't know. I didn't like the way they spent the pick at the time, regardless of the player who I wasn't super high on. Positionally, I didn't really see it.
Yeah, like, even I, being super high on John Collins, would not have even taken John Collins with that pick. Like, I don't really understand it. I mean, if you want to kind of get into the weeds with G League numbers, which it's probably worthwhile to do in his case, 12 points, 6 rebounds a night, 23 minutes a night, starting 28 games for Iowa, taking over a 3 a night, but not really hitting them at a super high clip. I don't know. I was never super high on this pick, and I have not seen reason to change that tune yet.
Agreed.
DJ Wilson for Milwaukee. What do we think of that decision?
I didn't like it at the time. I actually thought that if you reverse the 2 players they took, so if you took Sterling Brown there, even though that'd be super high on most people's boards, but I had Sterling that high. I thought that their draft would have been fine, but I was never a DJ Wilson guy. I didn't really see the value for them, especially considering not their best two players, but maybe their best two prospects, depending on how you feel about Jabari, or more fours. And Giannis can swing to the 5, of course. Again, positionally, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, like he's played 11 games in the G League for the most part. They've kind of kept him up with the big team. He's been actually pretty good when he's played in the G League. I've seen, I think, 2 games of him playing in the G League, 16 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2.3 assists. He's fine. He kind of fits the mold of what they have done over the course of the years. If they end up moving on from Jabari Parker this summer, I'm very interested to see if he can kind of step into a role next year. I've always liked the upside. I've always liked the athleticism. The length is interesting. I wonder if you can play him at center a little bit at some point. Can they build up his frame to that level and play him as like a small ball center off the bench for like 15 minutes a night? Not out of the question to me, but this is a developmental pick. It always was at the time. He was always a little bit of a project coming out of Michigan. I think it's probably too early to say much about this one.
I agree. And I think that, just the lack of strength and physicality really turned me off to him, especially on that team, if they need him to be a more diverse, multifaceted defensive player. I'm just not sold on the toughness. He's, again, a guy who has to shoot. Like, he doesn't shoot. I don't see his value, really. He's not like an uber athlete. He can do a little bit with the ball, but he's mainly going to operate as a space defender on defense, and then a guy who can space the floor on offense. Even
though TJ Leaf has played like so many more minutes than both DJ Wilson and Justin Patton, I have even fewer takes on TJ Leaf as like a prospect for Indiana. He's played 52 games. He's at 440 minutes this year. 47% from the field. He's hit 18 of his 39 3-point attempts. I think he looks fine. He looks like a rotation big guy at some point in his career.
Yep. I have nothing to add. I haven't seen a ton of them this year. I have to watch a lot more Indiana going into the playoffs, or at least watch them back some. So I really have nothing TJ Leaf related.
Let's talk about John Collins. 10 points, 7 rebounds a night on 58% shooting from the field. He's been one of the pleasant surprises of this draft class. To me, I'm not super shocked because he's always been productive at literally every single level he's played at in his career. 62% true shooting, 23% defensive rebounding rate. He's a monster. Like, he's so athletic. His second jump is ridiculous. He's even starting to shoot like threes occasionally now. Like, he's hit 15 of 43 threes this year. If he can do that, this is like, he's going to be a legit starting center next year.
Yeah, his defense has been much better than I thought. I thought he was a train wreck from what I saw in NCAA play.
He was bad at Wake.
Yeah, and he looks much more comfortable there. I'm still not sure if you can get away with playing him as a starting 5 unless you have a very specific kind of roster defensively. But offensively, the allure is very clear. Like, he's one of the best rim running bigs. It's probably the best one in the class. His body control, catching lobs, the quickness which he dives to the rim. He's so fast to the basket. If he becomes like a dual threat pick and roll guy, that's going to be really interesting if he can pick and pop. Again, Budenholzer's just really good at optimizing players. Like, Collins, for the most part, he came off the bench this season and played next to like a unicorn, not a unicorn big, but a stretch 5 type, like a Muscala, and that's how you want to use him. So I think that's another really really advantageous situation that he's really, taken the reins from. He's been really, really impressive to me.
I would love to see him and DeAndre Ayton together. I would love to just kind of see how that operates, because on some level, you should think that it kind of shouldn't work, but then you recognize that they're just two absurd, ridiculous athletes, and you can throw them in the front court together, and they can both kind of shoot a little bit, and they're both probably a little bit better defensively than they get credit for. Like, that could actually be a really, really fun pairing, even if it's like a little bit unconventional by the terms of the modern NBA.
It'd be really fascinating to see play out, for sure. The athleticism and the size of both those guys, the advantage that they would create on a nightly basis would be really intriguing.
Harry Giles goes number 20 to Sacramento. Obviously, he's going to sit out this entire season as they kind of try and get his knee strength up to par. This is all upside. He was obviously one of the best players coming into his rookie season at Duke, his freshman season at Duke. He was long time the best player in his high school class, and injuries have befallen him. From what I was told, many teams had him off of their board entirely due to medical. Sacramento obviously did not. it's hard with Harry, man. I really want to root for him. He's a great kid, but
yes,
I just wonder about if they're gonna get anything from this.
I do like the fact that they held him out this year. I mean, if you're going to take Giles 20, you have to make sure that when you get him on the floor, he is 100%. Because if he's the player he was at Duke, he's not an NBA player, in my opinion. Like, you can have him at the end of the roster, but he's really not going to do anything valuable for you. So it's a stealing upside play. If he returns to anything we've seen athletically prior to the injury, I think this could end up being a decent pick. At least maybe he could play backup 5. And switch a little bit. That's his allure defensively. But if they would have rushed him back, I would have understood it a lot less. It's so hard because, like, the kid is great. Like, I was at Hoop Summit 2 years ago, and he was there, and he was legit one of the best, like, players and people I've seen in person that's a basketball player. So everybody's rooting for him. It's just I'm a little concerned, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that Sacramento went into this with a very real plan. You know what I mean? If you're going to take him, you have to have a great plan for how you utilize him, and that is terrific. Let's just move on, though. Let's talk about Terrence Ferguson. 59 games. He started a few games here and there for Oklahoma City since Andre Robertson has been out. 40% from the field, 32% from three. Still not really contributing in anything other than scoring the basketball. Hasn't really helped them defensively, really, in any real way. What do we kind of make of Oklahoma City trying to run through this Terrence Ferguson kind of experiment coming out of Australia?
It makes sense. I mean, they need the extra shooting. They always covet athleticism, and that's something he does. He's a run and jump kind of leaper. We just have never seen it translate really to other aspects of the game. He is quick feet defensively. I don't think the IQ is there, and the strength. He's got a narrow frame. Synergy has him listed at 6'1", 184, which is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, he's 6'7", 184.
He's definitely bigger than. Yes, he's definitely bigger than that. But yeah, I think the lack of strength is something that you really have to look at, combined with the lack of instincts. But if he shoots the ball, he has to shoot better than what he's shooting now. If he can get up to like the high 30s, I think he's a rotation player. But I always had my concerns with him as far as contributing to any kind of winning construct.
They are 8 points better per 100 possessions defensively with him off the floor than when he's on the floor. A lot of that comes with the fact that Oklahoma City's starting lineup, especially early in the season, was ridiculous when Andre Robertson was there, but he has not been a good defensive player this year either. He has played 700 minutes, and I would imagine we'll see him in the playoffs a little bit here and there, but Oklahoma City has to make the playoffs there too, first and foremost. Let's talk about Jared Allen. Jared Allen in Brooklyn. 1,400 minutes, and he has been kind of one of the sneaky guys, I think, in this rookie class who have been really, really good.
He's been the most impressive guy to me in that general range. I don't want to say that. Of course, Kuzma, but I'm saying like guys I didn't expect coming at all. Like do
you like him more than you like John Collins?
That's really tough. I see his role in his fit is easier because I think he's a better rim protector, but Collins is so damn dynamic defensively. Mm-hmm. It's really close for me. Both of them I would definitely have higher than I did pre-draft. I'll settle on that, but we have to touch on the fact that Allen, like the Nets are a great developmental situation. They're not trying to win now. They have a great developmental coach, and you see that trickle out into his game. I think he fell into a tremendous spot. I'm not sure if Jared Allen's the same player in another setting, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I think that now, though, he has a chance to considerably outperform where he was drafted.
Yeah, I agree with you. 58% from the field, 8 points, 5 rebounds a night. 63% true shooting percentage, not turning the ball over a crazy amount for a big guy, attacking the offensive glass here and there to get putbacks. The passing is still a concern. He still doesn't really have the great feel for passing the ball that I would like to see, but 6'10", 7'5" wingspan, just has great hands both above his head and in terms of catching the ball. Whenever he's on the perimeter trying to make something happen, I like it. It was the kind of smart, high upside play that I think Brooklyn always should be taking as they kind of deal with the ramifications of the Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce trade. And I think that it's not out of the question that they have found a starting center in the NBA.
I agree with you. At the time, I wanted him to take the next guy that went off the board, but I understand the pick now. I mean, the way that they develop guys, the way they can kind of suss out maybe some shooting with Allen, and if they can get any kind of passing on short rolls or anything, I think he can be a valuable starting player. Maybe not average. Maybe he can get to average. I think that's where his ceiling lies, though. I don't see any kind of impact upside as far as two-way guy, just because the offense is going to be a very specific kind of player, but he can be an average starting player in the league, and that's tremendously valuable.
Yeah, let's talk about OG Anunoby, who went next to Toronto. He's had an interesting year. I would say, in a lot of ways. Obviously, he's starting right now for the best team in the Eastern Conference. Really has started throughout the entire course of the year, basically since November, really. Other than there was like an 8 or 9 game thing in the middle of the year where he wasn't playing. So I like what I've seen. He's very versatile defensively. We knew he was going to be able to guard kind of 1 through 5, 2 through 5 maybe is a better way to put it. But the offense is still obviously a concern. He's really only contributing as a catch-and-shoot guy.
And that's all he really needs to be. If he can attack a closeout eventually, he has shown more fluidity with the ball as a ball handler, not like a primary creation setting, but I think in space he's a little underrated. He's an excellent finisher at the rim, which you could expect on lower volume with his athleticism. I really value his archetype and just how hard bigger kind of combo forward defenders who can also shoot a little bit, how valuable those guys are in the modern game. Like if you look at the current draft, the 2018 draft, if DeAndre Hunter doesn't declare, I'm not sure if there's any of those guys. Maybe Keita Bates-Diop. I don't think he's nearly as athletic as someone like OG Anunoby. Is he as versatile? So guys like this are just really, really valuable, and they're really hard to find.
Yeah, I agree with that. We'll see how he plays in the playoffs, too. Do teams kind of take advantage of being able to play 4-on-5 offensively with him on the floor? Wouldn't be that crazy to me if they just stopped guarding him in the playoffs and kind of let him beat them. Let's move on, though. Let's talk about the next 3 guys kind of in a group, I guess. Tyler Lydon goes 24. That was a bad pick when it happened, I thought. Tom Crean obviously almost had a meltdown when it happened. He has not really played at all for the Nuggets this year. If I remember correctly, he's played a little bit in the G League and has played kind of decent, like not crazy well, but like he's played reasonably well. I have not seen a ton of him necessarily, though. He's played 15 games in Rio Grande Valley, which, obviously is a great spot for basically any G League player to get minutes, especially guys who can really stretch the floor from the 4-5 position. But I mean, he's a shooter. That's basically all he does right now is just shoot the basketball from distance. Let's talk about Andrzej Pasechnik. Have you seen anything out of Andrzej Pasechnik playing for Canaria in the ACB?
I have not watched any of him this year. I've been too busy with college, and then when I get the spare chance, I watch the NBA. So I haven't even watched a lot of the international prospects this season, but I'll definitely go back and watch his tape. I wasn't super enthused as much as some other guys were as far as tape last season. So we'll see. I don't really have anything to add on him. Really quick on Lydon. Like, he was legit one of the worst players at Summer League, and that was really concerning when you saw him play. And I think he got that weight clause in his contract. I want to say that was leaked out. So I don't know, man. I thought that was, I mean, obviously the narrative in the storyline is they traded back. They were hoping to get OG. It went 1 pick before, and they ended up with Lydon. That might hurt them for a while.
Yeah, I agree. Trey Lyles has been fine this year, but getting Trey Lyles and Tyler Lydon for the pick that was Donovan Mitchell is not going to age well. Pasechnik, 8 points a game, 4 rebounds a game. He's basically a solid rotation player in the ACB. That's fine, I guess. I've never been like super duper high on him either. 7'2", has true center size, but he's always been kind of like a fake stretch guy, where people think he has potential to shoot, and he never has really shot it at a high level. If he comes over, he's like a patented third center to me, more than like even a true backup. But we'll see. I'm sure that they'll bring him to Summer League and kind of see what they want to do with him. They'll obviously have to make a decision on him and Jonah Bolden as well. Bolden has had a more successful year over in Israel this year, obviously. Caleb Swanigan is the third guy here that we should talk about. Played a little bit early in the season, hasn't seen as many minutes later on. 183 minutes. It's kind of a throwaway for him this year.
Yeah, and at Summer League, he had a really good Summer League, and I thought that a lot of that was because of you haven't got him against the bigger athletic guys in the NBA. I think the transition, when you get the skill guys in Summer League, they're going to perform better than when they do against, the dynamic athletes. So nothing really to add on him. I was never really super enthused by him, but I don't hate the pick here.
Yeah, motor pick. Motor guys, though, always kind of contribute in Summer League. He'll be fine, I think. He'll probably be like a bench guy in the NBA, bench rebounder who can hopefully shoot some threes at some point. The last guy in the first round who has been like a breakout guy is Kyle Kuzma, obviously for the Los Angeles Lakers. 16 points and 6 rebounds a night, 36% from three, 45% from the field. I don't know. I don't know what to think about Kuzma because, some people are very, very, very excited about him as like a potential all-star. I'm probably a little bit less than that, but also think he's going to be like a solid starting caliber player.
And I come in where you do. I don't think he's going to be quite as much all-star. I think that's more of the points you see him score. I think he's still going to take something off the table defensively, but he has shown more creation ability overall. My favorite part about his game is how aggressive he is, like attacking closeouts. Yeah. That's something that Jayson Tatum has that too.
Confidence.
His touch on the move. As the season has progressed, it's not like as high as far as percentile, but there was a point in the season where he was like, I want to say like 25 of 30 finishing on runners or something. He has freaky touch, like TJ Warren type touch on the move. I think he can really attack closeouts, and he can pass too. Like he has feel. I think he was a great pick. I mean, obviously he's a top 20 guy for me in the class. I don't see him as like an all-star or like a perennial all-star, but you can't not like the pick, especially playing off Lonzo. You can get guys who can score and space the floor. That's exactly what you need.
So where would you take him in a redraft? Like, you still probably don't take him over Fultz, right?
Oh, hell no.
Do you take him over Lonzo?
No, I would still take Lonzo.
I think I agree with you. I would not take him over Tatum. I probably would not take him over Josh Jackson, right?
I'm with you there.
I probably would take him over De'Aaron Fox.
Oh, boy. That's the range for me. But I think I'd still side Fox with the upside. But, damn, you could definitely convince me either way.
Isaac is a tough one. I don't really know what to do there. I would not take him over Markkanen. I would take him over Ntilikina. Probably would not take him over Dennis Smith. That's tight, though. Would take him over Collins. Would take him over Monk, Kennard. Would not take him over Mitchell. Probably would take him over Adebayo, Collins, that group. Would you take him over Anunoby, though?
I wouldn't. I value what Anunoby does more than Kyle Kuzma, and I realize there's more risk with the shooting, but defensively, I just think that Kuzma's probably never going to get there to the level that it's going to take to be, on a winning team, and that means he's going to have to shoot and play make at a much higher level. So I think the road for him is a little tougher. So I don't know. It's really interesting, though. That's the range for me. I'm more like he's like a top, like maybe 11 to 14 range or something like that, maybe a little bit higher. It's hard to know. I want to see these guys year two before some of the primary creator stuff. I value that more, and it's just too early to rule on those guys.
Yeah, I think I would take him over Anunoby, to be honest. Like he'd be somewhere in like the 6 to 9 range for me in this class, maybe like 7 to 10, somewhere like that. He's really good, though. He's really, really good.
He's really good.
Tony Bradley has played 29 minutes this year playing for Utah. I mean, we want to throw this away, right?
Yes, we do.
He was always going to be a project. They were always going to take their time with him. Derek White at number 29. I'm surprised he has not gotten as much time as I was hoping. Obviously, he had some injury issues throughout the course of the early part of the season. He's shot reasonably well when he's been in games. I think that the high-level feel has showcased itself whenever he plays, but we just haven't seen enough of him.
Yeah, and I'm still high on this kid. I think, especially in that organization, you're going to see him make a leap next year if he gets more playing time. He's been able to shoot the ball. I'm impressed with this feel, like you said. Not a high-level playmaker, but a capable one, especially in a secondary fashion. And the Spurs always know what to do with these kinds of multifaceted, dimensional guys.
They really do. It's always very impressive how they get the most out of a player who actually knows what he's doing on the basketball floor. Number 30, Josh Hart. Josh Hart had a big game today. I think he had like something like 24 and 5 rebounds or something along those lines. He's been impressive throughout the course of the season. Good defensively, 39% from 3. Basically exactly what the Lakers were hoping for when they took him.
Yeah, I had Hart as a top 20 guy. I'm really high on him. I don't know where I would have him now. I mean, I have him in the same range, but so many of these guys have outperformed their stock. You'd really trust him. We trust Jay Wright guys, and he really shows the intellect, the IQ. Like, his team defense is freaking awesome, and then like his strength level has been actually impactful defensively. Like, he can absorb contact, he can switch. His effort and his motor just always runs hot, and he knows how to play. In an offense like the Lakers, where they need that kind of floor spacing and guys who know what they're doing, Like he's in a great spot, and I think that the Lakers killed the draft overall. I mean, Lonzo is debatable too. Not at the time, of course. It was an easy choice at the time. Maybe in retrospect, you might take a couple guys ahead of him there. But as far as getting Kuzma and Hart at 27 and 30, you're doing pretty damn well for yourself.
It destroyed it. Let's go 5 picks at a time in the second round. Frank Jackson, Davon Reed, Wes Iwundu, Frank Mason, Ivan Rabb. Do you want to stop and talk about any of those guys?
Maybe Frank Mason, just to hit on the point that you can get like capable backup point guards in the second round pretty easily. I think it's not really it's a pretty fungible position, maybe not as much as like bad backup centers or whatnot, but I think that you can get guys like that, and Mason has been kind of what we thought he would be. He can shoot off the dribble. He has enough burst to get to the rim, so I think it was a great pick for them.
But then he kind of can't do anything when he gets to the rim.
Yes, that's the problem.
Regardless, though, like he's been just a solid spark plug for them off the bench. He's actually been very, very useful for them. I'm excited to kind of see where his career goes. From here, I would not... Like, there were points this year where he outplayed De'Aaron Fox, I thought. And that says a lot about getting a guy in the second round, even though he's 3 years older than De'Aaron Fox. It's still good to be able to get a guy in the second round who can play at that level and not make a fool of himself. Wes Iwundu has kind of sneakily played 900 minutes this year. I am surprised by that, just kind of having seen Orlando probably like 8 times this year. Don't really remember him much on the floor at all, to be honest, but the same shooting concerns that we thought he would have coming into his NBA career have reared their head. He's at 17% from 3.
Yeah, see, I think somebody made this comparison a while back between him and Chandler Hutchison, and this is kind of what I'm getting at when it's like, does Hutchison have the same caliber shot too? You know what I mean? Like, they're both not knockdown shooters. They're kind of a dicey projection. I think that maybe Hutchison has a little bit more off the bounce attacking closeouts, but how much does it matter? That's my issue with Iwundu last year, is like he does some interesting stuff. He can handle the ball. He can pass a little bit. But how much is that actually going to matter at the NBA level? Well,
Iwundu was always more of a point guard in college, whereas Hutchison is always a little bit more capable off of spot-up scenarios. He's a lot more capable attacking closeouts. Iwundu was always more comfortable in pick and rolls, whereas Hutchison's role, I think, is more translatable to the NBA.
That's fair.
36, Jonah Bolden. 37, Shimmy Ojeleye. 38, Jordan Bell. 39, Jawan Evans. 40, Dwayne Bacon. Kind of all useful players there.
That's a really nice stint there. I mean, overall, I'm really high on Jonah Bolden. I think he's going to fill a nice role as a backup 5. He has the feet. Does he have the intelligence? We'll see. Semi Ojeleye, I don't know how he's shooting. I don't have the stats in front of me. I was always more lukewarm on him than you were. And I think, like, can he do anything else but shoot? And he's in that second percentile as far as finishing at the rim. I mean, he's only gotten there 30 times. He's 11 of 30, but the lack of flexibility. I think that Boston, of course, cultivates these guys better than anybody. Jordan Bell, again, I think he's probably at least a top 20-ish guy in a redraft. I think he's played that well, and he's in a great system that's going to fully capture his skills. We've both talked a lot about Jawan Evans. He's fantastic. So this stint, you got probably 4 guys that are going to stick in the NBA, which is pretty incredible. Yeah,
and I mean, Dwayne Bacon's been useful for Charlotte at times this year. Sorry, I looked at it and saw like New Orleans took him, and I forgot that they traded him. I was like, wait, he plays for Charlotte. Yeah, like he's been pretty useful. The jump shot has not been there. He's at 25% from 3, but like the athleticism has held up in a pretty big way. Jawan Evans, again, jump shot not there. If he gets that jump shot, he's going to be a very useful backup point guard for a long time. Jordan Bell looks like he's going to be a starter for the Warriors like as soon as next year, probably, right? And then
at least a situational one. Like they tend to disperse their bigs. Like in certain lineups, they'll play Bell against smaller teams. Like when they play Houston, he'll start. But I think maybe you can see that avenue. Like he'll start against more than half of the teams in the NBA.
And then Shimmy Ojeleye is a very useful defensive player already, and as soon as the jump shot comes around, he's going to be very good there. The jump shot also has started to come around. I think over the last 5 or 6 games, he looks a lot more confident playing offensive basketball now. And then the last guy there is Jonah Bolden, obviously 46% from the field as he's played in the EuroLeague this year. He's started 28 games in the EuroLeague this year. 7 points a night, 6 rebounds. He's athletic. He's long. We'll see with him. Everyone got real excited about the numbers last year, obviously, when he was playing in the Adriatic League. Shot 40% from 3. That number's down to 30% this year, playing in a much tougher competition level. 54% from the free throw line. Still not really a shooter for me, and I wonder if he's kind of in between positions. But, he's at least going to be useful in some way probably for them.
I agree.
Like worst case scenario, he probably replaces Rashawn Holmes.
Yeah, which probably going to need to happen is I'm guessing somebody will pay Rashawn, even though he hasn't, to my eye, played as well this year, and you're starting to see the defensive deficiencies as far as reacting to plays and stuff like that. But I think that Jonah Bolden is the likely successor to him, just based on finances first and foremost.
41, Tyler Dorsey. 42, Thomas Bryant. 43, Isaiah Hartenstein. 44, Damian Dotson. 45, Dylan Brooks. If I told you that one of those players has played the third most minutes of this rookie class, would you believe me?
Oh, God, no. It's Dylan Brooks, obviously, right?
Yeah, Dylan Brooks has played 2,300 minutes this year.
Good Lord.
So many minutes.
That's freaking insane.
He's playing 29 minutes a night for Memphis. Tank away, Memphis. No, I mean, he's been fine this year. He started 71 games, 10 points a night, 3 rebounds, 1.5 assists, shooting 36% from 3, slightly below average true shooting percentage. Not really a guy who contributes to the glass, doesn't really pass all that well. He's not much more than like a bench guy for me, but he's at least been useful for them at a time where they needed him.
I haven't watched nearly enough Memphis to even have an opinion on him. The only guy I'll note in this range is Thomas Bryant. Haven't seen a lot of him either, but I probably get more questions about him than anybody else, especially from Lakers fans who are kind of excited about that kind of unicorn potential, shooting threes. Have you watched Thomas Bryant at all?
A little bit. I've watched him a little bit in the G League. He's been incredibly active in the G League. People, since he's been in high school, have raved about the fact that his motor never quits. That's continued throughout his play in the G League. You even see it a little bit in the few minutes he's played with the Lakers. He played some today. The key is going to be the jump shot. If he can ever shoot threes, that's going to be incredibly valuable. He has shot them at a good clip in the G League. We'll see what happens whenever he gets to the NBA and has to quicken it up a little bit. Yeah, I think he has a chance to be a solid backup center. And if they got that out of him, they'd be pretty happy. And to be honest, it seems like he's kind of ahead of Ivica Zubac in the kind of like rotational outlook there long term.
Yeah, I think Zubac is like the one guy of their young core that hasn't performed to expectations this year. Like basically everybody else has been really solid. The Lakers have gotten underrated contributions. Like Julius Randle's played great. Ingram's shown more. Lonzo, Kuzma, down the line, Josh Hart. A lot of interesting young guys, and I think that Zubac is the one guy that's kind of been left behind a little bit.
46, Sterling Brown. 47, Ike Onobogu. 48, Sindarius Thornwell. 49, Vlatko Čančar. 50, Matthias Lesort.
Yeah, for me, it's Sterling and Sindarius, two guys I was really high on. Sterling's been able to fill that team defense role. Both of them are just awesome wing defenders, and they have strength, which is what I look for in wing defenders first and foremost. It's going to come down to the shooting. Sterling is a much better bet to shoot than Sindarius, which is why I had him ranked higher. But both those guys you can see playing a role, likely a bench role, on a good team, but at least that outcome exists for both. And getting those guys in this range I thought was really impressive. I
want to mention Matthias Lesort as well. Has been very productive in the minutes he's played for Red Star this year. Another guy who started 29 EuroLeague games for his team, 60% shooting from the field, 9 points, I believe something like 5 rebounds a night. He's not really much of a shooter. He's just a pure energy player at 6'9" with relative length and just full on power. It wouldn't be crazy to me if he ended up making it over to the NBA at some point.
That's fair. Yeah, he's another guy I haven't seen a ton of. I wasn't really high on him last year when it comes to the draft. I just didn't like his perimeter defense that once. So
51, Monte Morris. 52, Edmund Sumner. 53, Kadeem Allen. 54, Alec Peters. 55, Nigel Williams-Goss. Do we care about any of these guys?
I think Alec Peters has a chance to stick just because I know he can shoot the living hell out of the ball off movement too. So maybe he finds a role in the league. But he's the only guy I've really seen play at all. I watched a little bit of Suns recently, and everybody else I haven't really seen play. Edmund Sumner, of course, was coming off the injury, correct? And like he has athleticism. I think he can get in the paint. But I don't know. None of these guys really jump off the page. I love Monte Morris's decision making, but he's kind of like a better version of Tyler Ulis. Like that's not super valuable unless you can score at the next level if you're a backup point guard especially. So those are all my thoughts on those guys.
I will point out that Monte has been awesome this year in the G League. Nearly 18 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists in the G League, 33% from three. That number needs to come up, but 47% overall from the field. Again, playing for Rio Grande Valley, so the numbers are a little bit inflated. But from what I've seen from him in the G League, it's been very, very good.
Yeah, I really liked him as a prospect. I thought he was a damn good college player. I just never really knew how it was going to translate. But if he's your fifth point guard or your fourth point guard or like fifth guard overall, I'm fine with that. He's a really high IQ player. Yeah,
also Kadeem Allen is one of the most pesky perimeter defenders I've seen in a while. And that might be enough, but probably not.
Yeah, that's a tough sell. But yeah, I agree with you.
56, Jabari Bird, 57, Sasha Vezenkov, 58, Ognen Yaramaz, 59, Jaron Blossom Game, 60, Alpha Kaba. Do we dare stop for any of these players?
I literally have nothing to say.
I'm going to look up Vezenkov's numbers. He's playing for Barcelona right now. Obviously, again, EuroLeague team. They play in the ACB. Not really performing all that well. He probably really should have came out after his big year in Greece, which I believe came in 2015. He probably would have gone a little bit higher in the draft after averaging like 17 points and 7 rebounds and winning the Greek League MVP, even with his lack of athleticism. But what can you do sometimes? That's the world we live in whenever Sasha Vezenkov is getting time on this podcast.
I just have a random question for you really quick. Do you think that Mohamed Bamba is what you classify as kind of a fake stretch guy?
Oh, that's a good question. I think he can shoot a little bit more than like Alpha Kaba, because we talked about Alpha Kaba before the podcast, and I was like, I forgot that he even stayed in the draft last year and got picked 60th overall. And I referred to him as like a fake stretch guy, and I referred to Pasechnik earlier as a fake stretch guy. I think he can shoot it a little bit more, and I think he's learning the jump shot at an earlier time in his career than many of his past American center counterparts.
Yeah, I was honestly just curious, just because when you said that was the first guy I kind of thought about was like a kind of a fake stretch guy that people think can be Gobert with a 3-point shot. I'm not obviously sold on that at all, but it's just kind of curious by that definition what you thought.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Cole, tell the people where they can find your work.
As usual on thestepien.com, I will be down, like I noted earlier on the podcast, at the Hoop Summit this week in Portland. So I will be coming out probably with nightly reports on different practices. So we get the World Team earlier in the week, and then Team USA in the latter half, some fun scrimmages, and then, of course, the game on Friday night. So, stay tuned for that.
Cole does great work. Go follow him over at Stepien. Go follow him at Cole Zwicker on Twitter. This has been the Game Theory Podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Android, whatever podcasting app you use. Make sure and hit that button to subscribe to the show. It really helps us in the ratings. We'll be back later this week. We're going to talk Eastern Conference and Western Conference playoff previews once those seedings all get set. But until next time, we will talk soon. Bye.